22.6 million people watched that Monday night ball game, making it one of the highest rated games that ESPN has had for the Monday night game since they've had the package. It's great. It's absolutely great. I want to say one thing about, before we get back to the coaching. I want to write this down here. The coaching. By the way, Angelo Cataldi at the bottom of the hour at 4:30 Eastern. One thing about the Jets. Jets are looking for a quarterback. I do think Nick Foles makes sense. You know why? Nick Foles is used to being in that role of being the ultimate substitute teacher. Now, it would be for a longer extended period of time, obviously. But I think they're going to give Zach Wilson every opportunity to be the starting quarterback with the Jets. And Nick comes in and give him, I'd rather give him that opportunity because he's played that role before. That's a very talented football team. Let's do this, for instance, on Nick Foles. And this is where I'm going to come to Nick Foles' defense here. You know how everybody, and I heard D. Gunn and everybody saying this today on Sports Take. Silsey's never really had any kind of success anywhere else but Philly. Well, let's dissect that for a second. You think he was going to get really great coaching with Doug Marrone? Or with the Bears? Or with the Colts? Where have they ever developed a quarterback at those three shitboxes? Where in the world? Why would you think that Nick would go in there and transform that organization when they've never been able to transform any organization? Maybe a little bit of Blake Bortles and a whole bunch of, what was the guy's name back in the day? That was the quarterback, Mark Brunell. Other than that, it's been horrible. I mean, where in the world? The Jets are an incinerator for burning quarterbacks out. That's why they had to go buy a veteran. So Nick not having success, here, watch this. Nick not having success sales with Jacksonville, Chicago, or Indy. Yeah, it probably makes sense. Probably makes sense. I mean, where would you think Nick Foles would go in there? And Nick Foles had great coaching in the perfect storm. You know what he had? 2 backup quarterbacks as his coordinator and head coach who knew the role and were comfortable with him taking over. I'll tell you this. That's as good as a move by coaching for coaches to have gut feelings and not over the metrics on people, what they use today, as you had when you had, what's his name, in St. Louis after Trent Green got hurt, when Dick Vermeil went like this, and everyone wanted Charlie Armey to go out, who was a GM at the time of the Rams, to make a trade for a quarterback. Nah, I'm going with this guy. I'm going with this guy, Kurt Warner. There's something wrong with this guy, man. I like this guy. He's different. Nobody in the building. Mike Martz said, Kurt Warner? He was with the Iowa Barnstormers the year before. Okay? Right? So some of these other things are just dumb. By the way, I have to say this. I can't wait for Colin Kaepernick to go away in this race baiting, in this business that he's in of race baiting. Son, you want to play ball, go play in the XFL, USFL, show people you can still play. You haven't played in 7 years. You're not an option. You're a distraction. League paid you $20 million to go away. By the way, I never thought he was a bad quarterback. I actually liked him. But this is now absurd and insane. And it's just race baiting. It's absolute race baiting. He's not an option. Okay? He's not an option. I'd rather have Nathan Peterman on my team than Colin Kaepernick. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, and so his agent's calling the Jets. Why would you call the Jets? So you can make the NFL look bad. So when they say no, I can't wait for this story to go away. Seriously, this is an absolute, that's right there, race baiting. When there's true racism in the NFL and you see it with coaching hires, that's one thing. But when you see this kind of shit here, it hurts it. It's a complete joke. Hey, this story was big 6 years ago. Now, you're just looking to keep your name in the press. Dude, to me, if I really wanted to play ball that bad, go play in the XFL, go play in the USFL. Go do what every other guy does to try to keep his career alive and try to keep it fueled. Show people you want to play and not play them. It's a dumb conversation. And it's not worthy of the NFL any longer. Okay? It's just not. It's race baiting. Enough. Before we move on to coaching here, the Packers also are casualties of Aaron Rodgers' injury. So there's a silver lining here for the Jets a little bit. You ready? They don't have to give up a 2024 first-round draft choice now because he's not going to play 65% of the games, and he's not going to play 65% of the plays this year. They only have to give up a second-rounder. So the Jets get a little bit of break there where, again, they don't have to send Green Bay a first-rounder. The Packers get hurt in this because they don't get that first-rounder. Okay? So, again, all right. Let's get back to the coaching here for tomorrow night. By the way, our friend Angelo Cataldi will be with us at the bottom of the hour. What do you have a bigger concern on tomorrow night? Personnel or coaching? I'm going to ask Angie this question. Who do you have more of a concern on? Sean Desai is going to be, he's going to be under the microscope a lot. He's going to be under the microscope a ton here. Barb goes personnel. D-line's going to eat Thursday night. It has to. Because your secondary and backers can't cover. Coaching, but a few players are out. Hey, few players are out. Didn't Peter King say this was the deepest roster in the NFL? We're going to put that to a test, aren't we, tomorrow? Because here's your guys out. Nakobe Dean, Kenneth Gainwell, Bradbury, and I would think Blankenship's next. Okay? I'm watching offensive coaching and defensive personnel. So you have more faith in Sean Desai in stopping that offense of the Vikings than you do Brian Johnson getting the offense back in sync again. I think they just were not dominant enough running the ball. They were in the first series of plays. But they just became, in my opinion, it's not the deepest roster. Ty just says it's the deepest roster. How can it be the deepest roster when your linebackers suck and your safeties got annihilated? Deepest where? What are you talking about? You know where you're becoming deep? Your DTs. Your DTs. Your DTs, you're becoming deep. Nowhere else on that defense. That defense is, you take Jalen Carter off that defense, you're not very good. Blankenship is out. So now Blankenship is out. How do you feel about going into that game against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, and TJ Hawkinson now? Your best safety's out. Your back that you established for whatever reason is out. Your all-pro corner's out. Your Mike linebacker's gone for 4 weeks. Sills, why do they script plays? Good question. A lot of teams do this. Here's what you'll do, too. Fletcher's questionable. I thought he was trending more towards playing. Here's why they do this, and here's what you do. Most defensive linemen, I learned this from Randy White and from Ed. You know what they'll do? And I'll just, for instance, I'll take a guy like Lane Johnson. Now Howie has to take some of the blame for this. Great point. And I'm going to get to that here in a minute. Because we're starting to see some holes in the roster. A little. It's only 60 minutes of football before we go crazy on that. But against a guy like Lane, say you're a Harvey Martin or you're Reggie White or whatever, you'll look at some of the weaknesses or some of the formations and you'll think of the first 3 pass rushes that you're going to run at this guy. And you're going to practice those all week so that when you get into the game, you've practiced these techniques. Maybe sometimes a guy has a weak inside shoulder and he's susceptible to tilting or leaning and he'll lunge. So what you do is you want to get him in a grab and you want to get him in a grab and pull in a swimming. You want to swim him or you want to arm rip him or you want to do a cross hand chop spin and you want to get back to the inside. Both tackles working with one another. You practice all that stuff so that you can become comfortable with. I used to do that too when I played. I would practice my first 3 pass rush moves, having watched film on a particular guy and what some of the weaknesses and what some of the other players had success on him. So what you would do is if you'd see a guy who had wide splits, I might want to cheat, line up in that middle split, hit the gap, tell my linebacker, look out, I'm hitting the gap. And you hit that gap because if you watch my highlight reel, watch how many times I hit the gap. Because if a guy takes a split on me, he ain't blocking me. He's not blocking me. Watch my highlight reel. If you took a big split on me, I'm getting to your inside shoulder. You're not stopping me. I was quicker than everything. You just couldn't. You were not stopping me. Shit, if the other guy next to me, you clearly were not stopping Jerome Brown. Yeah, I mean, you took big splits on us. You had big problems. So you kind of practice that a little bit there. I like that question. How much of the blame do you look at? Wait a minute. I don't know you could blame Howie yet. I think this is too early. However, to go with Tone's point, he did not construct that defense good enough. He assumed Nakobe Dean was going to be available and a player. That's yet to rear its head whether he is or he isn't. I'll concede that. But I told you, I don't think he's going to be healthy enough. Remember what I told you? I don't think he makes the season. He's surely not playing all 17 games. Well, that played out in the first game. He's not playing all 17. And by the way, there's no rooting against the kid, so my take can be right. Here, I want you people to always understand one thing. When I say something like that against Nakobe Dean, I swear to God, I pray to God he proves me wrong. I root for players to have success. I'm not rooting against them, But there's a reason why people had concerns, health issues over Nakobe Dean and why he went in the third round. When I do think he played really well at Georgia. But there was health concerns with him and durability concerns. And they've played out that way in Philly so far. Dude, he's been more injured than he's been on the field in a meaningful role. That's not an opinion. That's not an opinion. And again, I'm not rude. Hey, people who have opinions and you're trying to drive a point home, that's that guy Bayless still talking about LeBron James 25 years after the guy's been in the league with 4 titles. Bro, you got to put that thing to rest. I mean, I don't care what you say, man. Well, he doesn't have as many titles as Jordan. Well, Jordan doesn't have as many titles as Bill Russell. And that doesn't seem to waver that debate. Isn't that crazy? The Jordan conversation about how Skip Bayless handles LeBron, he makes it sound like Michael Jordan has won the most championships in NBA history. Shit, Russell's almost doubled them. And he doesn't get conversations. Well, Russell's got what, 11? I mean, the conversation, oh, I see, it doesn't apply to Bill, but it applies to Jordan. It's selective takes and how you look at things. Okay? It's totally, by the way, Angelo Cataldi will join us in a couple minutes here. So, that's a good point on Howie, though. Boy, I tell you, I didn't think the team, I thought he had stopped some of the bleeding. Now, again, I have to do what you guys in Even Tone said. Dude, it's Belichick. It's week 1. All of that, I agree. But you have a superior roster to that thing. Okay? You have a superior roster. You're skilled guys. Hey, were you more disappointed in Jalen Hurts, or were you more disappointed that AJ and Devontae and Goddard couldn't be more of a force in that game against New England? I mean, we all said this about the defense. Hey, this thing's going to take 8 weeks. You guys didn't want to hear it. So I wasn't really all that surprised by the defense because I thought that thing would be a little bit slower coming along. But when you see the offense kind of get out, okay? Starts with the quarterback. Hurts didn't perform up to what I expected. Yeah, how many quarterbacks really have great games against Bill Belichick, though? And that's not an excuse. He's got a history of it. And get this, and your coaches didn't help Jalen. It just seemed all over the joint. Play calling was anemic. The play was anemic. The whole thing on offense. Now, again, I'm going to back this thing up and go like this. Hang in there. Okay? Let's see how this thing looks. Minnesota, hey, I don't know. Jameson, I don't know if that number's changed now because of all the people that aren't going to be playing in this game. But remember what I told you on Monday? Hey, if that's me, I'm taking the 7 in Minnesota. Now, I wonder if that number's come down. If it's still hanging around 6.5, the people with the money bags still think that it's at home and that the offense is going to right the ship. I happen to think the offense is going to right the ship too. Because I think the offense, again, I think they completely underachieved. I don't think the defense underachieved. I think the defense is kind of right where I thought it was going to be. Okay? You got to remember something here, man. Belichick is going to do this to a ton of people. He's going to do this to a ton of folks. He did this to Brady a couple of years ago when Brady went up there when he was with the Buccaneers. And personally, again, I wasn't shocked that they threw different disguise coverages at him. But the one thing, again, was the coaching. This came down to the coaching issues that we thought. And I got to say it again to you. The coordinating in the game with Brian Johnson, Brian has to be more of a situation where they're structuring more situational play callings for Jalen. Dude, the approach of putting Gainwell in the backfield, that didn't make sense when you made the trade, like we said the other day, for Swift. It just didn't.